Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Before moving ahead, let me tell you one thing. This session includes lots of important topic. So keep concentrate on it. So now let's move on and look at our next topic, the measures of the spread. Now what is measure of spread? A measure of spread, sometimes also called a measure of dispersion, is used to describe the variability in a sample or population. You can think of it as some sort of deviation in the sample. So you measure this with the help of the different measures of spread. We have range, we have interquartile range, variance and standard deviation. Now range is pretty self-explanatory. It is given measure of how spread apart the values in a data set are. The range can be calculated as shown in the formula. So you are going to the maximum value in your data set from the minimum value in your data set. That's how you calculate the range of the data. Next, we have interquartile range. So before we discuss about interquartile range, let's understand what a quartile range. So quartile basically tells us about the spread of a data set by breaking the data set into different quarters. Just like how the median breaks the data into two parts, the quartile will break into different quarters. So to better understand how quartile and interquartile are calculated, let's look at a small example. Now this data set basically represents the marks of 100 students ordered from the lowest to the highest scores. So the quartile lies in the following ranges. The first quartile, which is also known as Q1, it lies between the 25th and 26th observation. So if you look at this, I have highlighted the 25th and 26th observation. So how you can calculate Q1 or first quartile is by taking the average of these two values. Since both the values are 45, when you add them up and divide them by 2, you'll still get 45. Now the second quartile or Q2 is between the 15th and 51st observation. So you are going to take the average of 58 and 59 and you will get the value of 58.5. Now this is my second quarter. The third quartile is Q3, is between the 75th and the 76th observation. Here again we'll take the average of the two values, which is the 75th value and the 76th value, and you'll get the value of 71. So this is exactly how you calculate the different quarters. Now let's look at what is interquartile range. So IQR or the interquartile range is a measure of variability based on dividing a data set into quartiles. Now the interquartile range is calculated by subtracting the Q1 from Q3. So Q3 minus Q1 is your IQR. So your IQR is your Q3 minus Q1. Now this is how each of the quartiles are. Each quartile represents a quarter, which is 25%. So guys, I hope all of you are clear with the interquartile range and what our quartiles are. Now let's look at variance. Variance is a measure that shows how much a random variable differs from its expected value. It's the variance in any variable. Now, variance can be calculated by using this formula. Here, x represents any data point in your data set and is the total number of data points in your data set, and x bar is the mean of the data points. This is how you calculate variance. Variance is basically computing a square of deviation. That's why it says S square there. Now let's look at what is deviation. Deviation is just the difference between each element from the mean. So it can be calculated by using this simple formula where xi represents a data point and mu is the mean of the population. This is exactly how you calculate the deviation. Now, population variance and sample variance are very specific to whether you are calculating the variance in your population dataset or in your sample dataset. Now, the only difference between population and sample variance is the formula for population variance is pretty explanatory. So, x is basically each data point, mu is the mean of the population, n is the number of sample in your data set. Now let's look at the sample variance. Now sample variance is the average or squared differences from the mean. Here xi is any data point or any sample in your data set. X bar is the mean of your sample. It's not the mean of your population. It's the mean of your sample, and if you notice, n here is a smaller. N is the number of the data points in your sample, and this is the difference between sample and population variance. I hope that is clear. Coming to standard deviation is the measures of dispersion of a set of data from its mean. So it's generally the deviation from your mean. That's what standard deviation is. Now to better understand how the measures of spread are calculated, let's look at a small use case. So let's say Andrew has 20 dragons. They have the number 9, 2, 5, 4 and so on. As shown on the screen, what you have to do is you have to work out the standard deviation. In order to calculate the standard deviation, you need to know the mean. So first, you are going to find out the mean of your sample set. So how do you calculate the mean? You add all the numbers in your data set and divide by the total number of samples in your data set. So you get a value of 7 here. Then you calculate the RHS of your standard deviation formula. So from each data point, you are going to subtract the mean and you are going to square that. So when you do that, you will get the following result. You will basically get this 4, 25, 4, 9, 25 and so on. So finally, you will just find the mean of the square differences. So your standard deviation will come up to 2.983 once you take the square root. So guys, this is pretty simple. It's simple mathematical technique. All you have to do is you have to substitute the values in the formula. I hope this was clear to all of you. Now let's move on and discuss the next topic, which is information gain and entropy now. This is one of my favorite topics in statistics. It's very interesting, and this topic is mainly involved in machine learning algorithms like decision trees and random forest. It's very important for you to know how information gain and entropy really work and why they are so essential in building machine learning models. We focus on the statistical parts of information gain and entropy, and after that we'll discuss a use case and see how information gain and entropy is used in decision trees. So for those of you who don't know what a decision tree is, it is generally a machine learning algorithm. So you don't have to know anything about this. I'll explain everything in depth, so don't worry. Now let's look at what exactly entropy and information gain is. Entropy is generally the measures of any sort of uncertainty that is present in the data. So it can be measured by using this formula. So here S is the set of all instances in the data set or data items in the data set. N is the different types of classes in your data set. P is the event probability. Now this might seem a little confusing to you all, but when you go to the use case, you'll understand all of these terms even better. Coming to the information gain, As the word suggests, information gain indicates how much information a particular feature or a particular variable given us about the final outcome. It can be measured by using this formula. So again, here H of S is the entropy of the whole dataset S. Sj is the number of instances with the j value of an attribute A. S is the total number of instances in the dataset. V is the set of distinct value of an attribute A. H of Sj is the entropy of subset of instances, and H of A, S is the entropy of an attribute A. Even though this seems confusing, I'll clear out the confusion. So let's discuss a small problem statement where we will understand how information gain and entropy is used to study the significance of a model. So like I said, information gain and entropy are very important statistical measures that let us understand the significance of a predictive model to get a clearer understanding. Let's look at a use case. Now suppose we are given a problem statement. The statement is that you have to predict whether a match can be played or not by studying the weather conditions. So the predictor variable here are outlook, humidity, wind, day is also a predictor variable. The target variable is basically play. The target variable is the variable that you are trying to predict. Now the value of the target variable will decide whether game can be played or not. So that's why the play has two values. It has yes and no. No meaning that the weather conditions are not good and therefore you cannot play the game. And yes meaning that the weather conditions are good and suitable for you to play the game. So that was a problem statement. I hope the problem statement is clear to all of you. Now to solve such a problem, we make use of something known as decision trees. So guys, think of an inverted tree and each branch of the tree denotes some decision. Each branch is known as the branch node, and at each branch node you are going to take a decision in such a manner that you will get an outcome at the end of the branch. Now this figure here shows out of 14 observation, 9 observation result is a yes. Meaning that out of 14 days, the match can be played only on 9 days. So here, if you seen on day 1, day 2, day 8 and day 9 and day 11, the outlook has been sunny. So basically we try to place a data set depending on the outlook. So when the outlook is sunny, this is our data set. When the outlook is overcast, this is what we have, and when the outlook is the rain, this is what we have. When it is sunny, we have 2 yes and 3 no. When the outlook is overcast, we have all 4 as yes. Mean that on the 4 days when the outlook was overcast, we can play the game. Now when it comes to rain, we have 3 yes and 2 no. So if you notice here, the decision is being made by choosing the outlook variable as the root node. So the root node is generally the topmost node in a decision tree. Now what we have done here is we have created a decision tree that starts with the outlook node. Then you are splitting the decision tree further depending on other parameters like sunny, overcast and rain. Now like we know that outlook has 3 values, sunny, overcast and rain. So let me explain this in a more in-depth manner. So what you are going here is you are making a decision tree by choosing the outlook variable at a root node. The root node is basically the topmost node in a decision tree. Now the outlook node has 3 branches coming out from it, which is sunny, overcast and rainy. Now the Outlook node has three branches coming out from it, which is sunny, overcast and rainy. So generally Outlook can have three values. Either it can be sunny, it can be overcast or it can be rainy. Now these three values are assigned to the immediate branch nodes, and for each of these nodes the possibility of play is equal to yes is calculated. So the sunny and the rain branches will give you an impure output, meaning that there is a mix of yes and no. There are two yes here and three no here. There are three yes here and two no over here. But when it comes to the overcast variable, it results in a 100% pure subset. This shows that the overcast variable will result in a definite and certain output. This is exactly what entropy is used to measure. It calculates the impurity or the uncertainty. So the lesser the uncertainty or the entropy of a variable, more significant in that variable. So when it comes to overcast, there is literally no impurity in the data set. It is a 100% pure subset. So we want variables like these in order to build a model. Now we don't always get lucky and we don't always find variables that will result in pure subsets. That's why we have the measures of entropy. So the lesser the entropy of a particular variable, the more significant that variable will be. So in decision tree, the root node is assigned the best attribute so that the decision tree can predict the most precise outcome, meaning that on the root node you should have the most significant variable. That's why we have chosen Outlook. Now some of you might ask me, why haven't you chosen overcast? Overcast is not a variable. It is a value of a overlook variable. It is a value of the Outlook variable. That's why we have chosen Outlook here, because it has a 100% pure subset which is overcast. Now the question in your head is, how do I decide which variable or attribute best splits the data? Right now, I know I look at the data and I told you that here we have a 100% pure subset. But what if it's more complex problem and you are not able to understand which variable will best split the data? So guys, when it comes to decision tree information and gain the entropy, will help you understand which variable will best splits the data set, or which variable you have to assign to the root node, because whichever variable is assigned to the root node, it will best let the data set and it has to be most significant variable. So how we can do this is we need to use information gain and entropy. So from the total of the 14 instances that we saw, 9 of them said yes and 5 of the instances said no. You cannot play on that particular day. So how you do calculate the entropy? So this is the formula. You just substitute the value in the formula. So when you substitute the values in the formula, you will get the value of 0.940. This is the entropy, or this is the uncertainty of the data present in a sample. Now in order to ensure that we choose the best variable for the root node, let us look at the possible combinations that you can use on the root node. So these are all the possible combinations. You can either have Outlook, you can have windy, humidity or temperature. These are 4 variables and you can have any one of these variable as your root node. But how do you select which variable best fits the root node? That's why we are going to see by using information gain and entropy. Now the task at hand is to find the information gain for each of these attributes. So for Outlook for windy, for humidity and for temperature, we are going to find out the information gain. Now, a point to remember is that a variable that results in the highest information gain must be chosen because it will give us the most precise and output information. So the information gain for attribute windy, we'll calculate that first. Here we have 6 instances of true and 8 instances of false. So when you substitute all the values in the formula, you will get a value of 0.048. So we get a value of 0.048. Now this is very low value of information gain. So the information that you are going to get from the windy attribute is pretty low. So let's calculate the information gain of attribute outlook. So from the total of 14 instances, we have 5 instances with sunny, 4 instances which are overcast and 5 instances which are rainy. For sunny, we have 3 yes and 2 no. For overcast, we all 4 yes. For rainy, we have 3 yes and 2 no. So when you calculate the information gain of the outlook variable, we'll get a value of 0.247. Now compare this to the information gain of the windy attribute. This value is actually pretty good. We have 0.247, which is very good value for the information gain. Now let's look at the information gain of attribute humidity. Now over here we have 7 instances which say high and 7 instances which say normal, and under a high branch node we have 3 instances which say yes and the rest 4 instances would say no. Similarly, under the normal branch we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 instances which say yes and 1 instance which say no. So when you calculate the information gain for the humidity variable, you are going to get a value of 0.151. Now this is also a very decent value, but when you compare it to the information gain of the attribute outlook, it is less. Now let's look at the information gain of attribute temperature. So the temperature can hold repeat. So basically the temperature attribute can hold hot, mild and cool. Under hot, we have 2 instances which say yes and 2 instances for no. Under mild, we have 4 instances of yes and 2 instances of no. And under cool, we have 3 instances of yes and 1 instances of no. When you calculate the information gain for this attribute, you will get a value of 0.029, which is again very less. So what you can summarize from here is, if we look at the information gain for each of this variable, we'll see that for outlook we have the maximum gain. We have 0.247, which is the highest information gain value, and you must always choose a variable with the highest information gain to split the data at the root node. So that's why we assign the outlook variable at the root node. So guys, I hope this use case is clear. If any of you have any doubt, please keep commenting on those doubts. Thank you so much for watching.